Annie Nightingale here on Six Music. Right, so Lou Reed, this is what happened. It was 1989, and he had an album out called New York. He didn't like doing interviews, which is quite well known, and he was infamous for giving journalists a really hard time. I mean, I think he'd started out actually as a writer, so I think it was a case of he didn't really suffer fools gladly anyway. At that time, there was on ITV a late-night music strand called Night Network, and if they had like a heavyweight person like Lou on offer to be interviewed, they sometimes tended to pull me in to do the interview, thinking I'd be able to cope. Anyway, we were setting up in a hotel room in the daytime somewhere in West London, and it's almost always the most difficult bit with an interview. When you have your subject in place, you are facing each other, but the crew are still getting the sound and fiddling around with the lights, you know. And this is really difficult because you don't want your subject saying anything really interesting before you start recording. Some people may be good at this. I suppose you're known as bants, you know, banter and all that, but Lou didn't really do bants. So to begin with, I said something like, oh, so when did you get here? Yesterday. Oh, how's your flight? Fine. How's your hotel? Fine. So I thought, oh my goodness, this is going to be really difficult. So at some point, anyway, he was talking about New York, and he was saying how dangerous a place it was and how a manhole cover had suddenly exploded upwards into the street while they were recording. So I told him about my first ever visit to New York. I was supposed to be helicoptered in from JFK and land on what was then the Pan Am building, which was on, Madison Avenue. Anyway, I didn't get on the helicopter, which was a bit of a disappointment, but hey, you know, I got to New York, I checked into the hotel room, and also I heard sirens everywhere. And I thought, oh, well, that's the New York, you know, you see on TV all the time, must be normal. Then I turned the TV on, and every channel had pictures of this very helicopter that I should have been on, which had landed very badly on top of the Pan Am building, toppled off over the side, and the rotor blade had spun off down and killed a woman in the street below. So I told this to Lou. Wow, he said, that your first visit to New York. I remember that about the helicopter, and you were going to be on it. So this really got through to him. He was no problem after that. He loved that story, and he was nice as pie. Now, this track I'm going to play had not then become the classic it is now, but it was the most requested on my then radio show. So did he know that? I put it to him.
Just a perfect day. Drinks and you're going to read just what you saw.
Lou, I wonder if you know how incredibly popular you are in this country.
Oh, I wouldn't have the vaguest idea.
You haven't a clue? Well, I do a radio show as well, which is a request program. And the last few weeks I've had more requests for Lou Reed than anybody else. I mean, like U2, Smiths and other like very popular bands. And I just wondered if you knew what a kind of popular chap you are here.
It's news to me.
What,
put it that
how
way.
would you react to that? I mean,
Oh. It would take some adjusting to it. I don't quite think of myself in those terms.
I suppose it's actually difficult to know in any country just what the response is. I mean, I don't know if you get a lot of mail from different countries, but...
We get letters, but not all that many. But the ones we get are very sincere.
Are they?
Yeah.
Very sincere. So, about New York, the album, which you're saying a lot of important things in it, one of which seems to be that what happens in New York today then spreads out afterwards. You know, is it kind of an indictment of New York itself?
An indictment? That's a heavy word, an indictment. I don't know. I thought it was a realistic look at the city. I really do. I'm not making anything up. And when I am making it up, I tell you I'm making it up.
Yeah.
You know, it's like... It seems to be that what happens in the cities, or in one city, generally happens in other cities. But of course I know New York the best, and I've never been in London long enough to presume to know that much about London.
Do you feel lonely in America?
No.
I ask you that because, well, obviously some of the lines have kind of leapt off the page, so to speak, of the album. I mean, obviously the things that make you angry. I mean, are there a number of people who feel that way you do, sufficient numbers to make you feel reasonably comfortable there?
Well, when I was first writing this album, I'd had 3 years to talk about it and think about it. And I set aside 3 months to write it, which involved a lot of rewriting, which I really hate. And rewriting is so hard. I did, like, 6 or 7 rewrites on these things because I didn't want to have to do that in the studio. I put myself under the pressure of, with everything else going on, coming up with the right word when I could have really ample time to come up with the right words. And I called my guitar player up, Mike Rathke, because I saw after the 3rd song it was going in a particular direction, unmistakably. And I had him come over and I said to him, "Well, Mike, look at this. This seems to be where we're going. What do you think?" He said, "Oh, I love this stuff. I feel exactly the same way you do. It's 8 years of Reagan. That's what's happened to you. Us. All of us." So that made me feel a whole lot better.
I bet it did, yeah.
So I just kept going at it, and the stuff kept coming out that same way anyway. There's not a whole lot of choice about the album. You write about what you write about, and I, in some ways it's kind of odd, kind of just follow it. Then, of course, I rewrite it and everything, but initially I'm just following it.
I was up in the morning with the TV blaring, brush my teeth, sitting watching the news. What to do, and I'm sick of you. I'm sick of you.
Sick of You from Lou's New York album. So I'm playing you this one-off interview that I did with Lou Reed in 1989 in a hotel room for a late-night TV show that everyone has forgotten about now, I'm sure. Hence, it sounds a bit strange, but he had interesting things to say. I think you'll agree.
There's a line in the song Last Great American Whale saying, "Americans don't care too much for beauty. They'll shit in a river and dump battery acid in a stream." Is anyone going to take
Well,
notice?
that's true.
Yeah. Is anyone going to take any notice, or is that not your function, to make people take notice of what you're saying? Or do you feel, I just want to say this because I believe it to be true? Or do you think that your lyrics going to make any difference, or people will take any notice and do something about it?
Oh, I don't know if it makes any difference. But I thought it was worth saying.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I have my own little private agenda of what I would do if I came to power.
Yeah.
But since I haven't come to power yet, I haven't been inaugurated. So I just thought these were some things that people should know about. And I don't even know if it was for that reason. It's just that's what I wrote. Whatever I did, every time I sat to write, it went over there. All the time.
Just came out, that's what you had to say.
Like I said, I follow it a lot. I don't want to sound quasi-mystical or something, but if it wants to go over there, that's that. If I don't want to go over there with it, then there's zero. It's odd.
So the material just dictates itself to you? Yeah?
It pretty much has. I mean, I know when novelists are saying, "Oh, the character had a life of his own." I do think I understand that feeling.
Well, I'm glad you said the word novelist, because now you've said that you feel this album should be listened to initially in one go, and that it should be treated like a novel. And what intrigues me is that you started off, as if this is true, that you were playing in bar bands to keep yourself going in higher education so that you can finish your creative writing course. Is that correct?
That's approximately true.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, when I became a professional musician, I earned almost nothing compared to when I was playing in bars when I was in school.
So why, having started out presumably as wanting to be a writer, as in a writer of books or plays or whatever, has that never come really through, and that it sort of concentrated itself into lyrics?
Well, it's just combining the two things I really liked. It seemed the obvious thing to do, because I really do love the guitar, but I also really love to write. Of course, the rewriting is, that's kind of the hard part.
They say he didn't have an enemy. His was a greatness to behold. Stick a fork in their ass and turn them over, they're done.
How are you on deadlines?
Oh, I love deadlines. Deadlines, that's the way I get things done. And if I don't have a real deadline, I make a phony deadline. I call people up or I make an arrangement for something to happen where I'll have to be there with a finished thing. So if it doesn't exist, I make it exist.
Is that how you did this album?
Yeah, it's just, I know myself pretty well. And so I know that if I don't have a deadline, I could think for 5 years before I ever sat down and did anything about it. And the other thing is that I know if I don't put it down, it'll go away and it won't come back, you know, for a long time. So that being the case, I make phony deadlines. I mean, I had a real deadline when we were really going into the studio, but I started making deadlines during the 3 months, like 1 month in.
How do you fool yourself, though? If it's a phony deadline, you know it's a phony one.
Well, because I set up a situation where it would just be very wrong if I walked in and said, oh, guess what, I didn't get anything done. I would call my guitar player up and say, be here the day after tomorrow at 6. And then by the next day, about 3, I'd be thinking, well, maybe you better call him and push it back a bit. But see, I don't let myself do that.
So it's not letting other people down, that's the trick then?
Well, just because he has to drive all the way from Boston. And it would be unthinkable to let him do that and then say, oh, surprise. Only teasing. Just wanted to see if you were paying attention. You can go back now. No, I do that. And I do other little things, like just to make a deadline. I'm not exactly the person who should, probably shouldn't say this, but I'm not the kind of person you should give $1 million to and say, as long as you want. Because I remember Andy Warhol used to, say, boy, if people in Hollywood gave us $1 million to make a movie, I'd use 100,000 and make 5 of them and keep the rest. But it doesn't really work with making records, especially in New York because it's so expensive. Well,
something in my research about Seeing You Today, which has come out, which I think probably be a surprise to a lot of people, is that you said, I don't actually have a lot of money.
Well, did I say that? Let me see. Wait a minute. How much do I have on me? I don't think that's really important.
Nor do I, but I think it's just yet another myth. People would be surprised. I think because you said that you did not want to, or maybe just didn't want to waste money on looking around studios and spending time in them and then deciding you didn't like them.
I'm not destitute.
No.
But I think I got the fame without the fortune. Put it that way. That's what happens to us cult figures.
So thanks for helping find that interview from 1989 with Lou Reed. I really loved his very dry wit and the pauses for dramatic effect. And what you said about songs coming by and you either work with them or these ideas go by and you miss them and they don't come back has really haunted me. And you know what? New York has suddenly decided to take over a lot more of this show.
Six Music.
I was sleeping gently, napping when